Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. This video is part of a 10 video series where I show you how to analyze data using pivot tables and charts in Excel. I will start by how to prepare your data, create your first pivot table. I will show you in detail how to customize the table, in detail how to sort, filter and group, everything you need to know to manage the source data, move and copy your tables, how you can use interactive pivot charts, slicers and timelines to visualize your data, how to put everything together in an interactive dashboard, and last but not least, how to save your dashboard, pivot tables and charts as templates and reuse them again. A pivot table is a powerful data processing tool that facilitates dealing, analyzing, and processing huge data. With little effort, you can have an interactive and dynamic view of your data. Pivot means the table can switch, rotate columns and rows, meaning reorganizing the data to get the required information from it. Why pivot table? What are their advantages? Well, they are user-friendly and easy to use. They are the best way to analyze data without formulas. They are very fast. You can create, analyze, and calculate data in less than a minute. Advanced features are available for filtering, sorting, and grouping with a couple of mouse clicks, as well as rearrange analysis layout per drag and drop. So I have a set of data containing dummy values for personal expenses of 21 months. The first column lists the day of the income or expense. The second and third are the value received or paid. The fourth one lists the category of the expense, like rent, groceries, dining out, and so on. Then payment method, and finally the type of expenses, whether fixed or variable sums. For pivot tables to work properly, the data must be prepared according to the following conditions. 1. All columns must have header field names or titles. 2. Column headers must be unique to the table, meaning they should not have the same name. Avoid blank cells. If you have a blank in a values column, Excel might think that the whole column is a text-based, which causes issues later with the calculation of the value in the pivot table. An easy way to find blank cells is Shift plus down arrow. It will automatically move to the next blank cell in the column. 4. Assign the category for each column, such as currency or date. 5. Format your list data as a table and name it. 6. Cells in the table should not be merged. 7. Remove any calculations, filtering, or grouping from the data. Total, subtotal, it will update automatically. All values of the same type must be in one column. Build the data downwards. If the data you are trying to analyze is spread out over multiple columns, then you will likely need to convert it before creating a pivot table. In the expense table, all expense values are in one column. All category values are also in one column. In the second table, expense categories of the same type, like dining out, car, rent, and so on, are listed on different columns. Thus, you cannot filter the singular column and must do calculations and analysis for every single one. They should be converted to one single column before applying the pivot table command. You can convert the data using copy and paste, transpose, as well as formulas like index and match. This will not be part of this video. I will cover it in another one of this series. Now that our data is prepared, it's time to insert the first pivot table. Click somewhere in the source data you prepared. Simply select any cell in the table, go to the ribbon, click on the Insert tab. On the left of the ribbon, you will find the options for the pivot table. The first one is to insert a new pivot table. The second one gives you recommended pivot tables. We will neglect that for now and click on the first command. You will get a window where you can specify the range and the location of the pivot table. Excel automatically selects the table if you selected any cell in the table before clicking on the Inserting button. You can choose to place the pivot table on a new worksheet or an existing one. I recommend always creating the table on a new worksheet. Why? Because the pivot table is dynamic and change the shape. This might cause it to interfere with the original data. Plus, you might lose the overview of your sheet if your sheet is too crowded on a small monitor. Note, if you choose the existing worksheet option, keep in mind that the cells you specify will be in the upper left cell of the pivot table. Click OK when you finish. A new sheet will be inserted containing on the right side the pivot table fields and areas which we will use to configure the pivot table. Fields are the name of the table headings. On the left side is the location where the pivot table will be placed. Once you select within the pivot table, two new tabs will appear on the ribbon, the Pivot Table Analyze tab and the Pivot Table Design tab. The tabs contain the commands to manage, edit, and format the table. A lot of the commands available in both tabs are also available when right-clicking on the pivot table. To facilitate matters, since this might be your first time, I will change how the pivot table should be displayed. Click within the area the pivot table will be placed, go to Pivot Table Analyze, Options, and change the display option to Classic Pivot Table Layout. I can drag and drop the fields, which are the heading of my table, in the areas below them or directly in the pivot table skeleton. Just like a normal table, a pivot table has rows, columns, values, or data calculated and filters. If, for example, I drag the date field to the row area, Excel automatically creates row in the pivot table. If I drag expenses in the value area, the expenses will be listed, summed in the table and under the value area. Now for our first table, I will drag the categories field to the rows area, the date field to the column area, expenses to the value area. So by drag and drop, the pivot table will be created. I will group the presentation of the date data into years. I will select within the date items, then the grouping command under the Pivot Table Analyze tab. I will then choose to group by years. I will add another field as a filter, for example, the fixed or variable part. You can drag it to the table directly in the filter area or the filter area under the pivot table fields. To show you how flexible the pivot table is, I will drag the fixed and variable cost field to the columns area. As you can see, the table changed shape immediately. That's the name pivot table. You can, by the way, change the type of calculations Excel does. I will cover that in another tutorial of this series. In the value area, you can only insert numeric data that can be calculated. This is how amazing and flexible a pivot table is. Drag and drop, then magic. You don't have to write hundreds of formulas across worksheets, which will take hours and slow Excel down. To remove a field from the pivot table, you can drag it outside of the field area, uncheck it, or click on the field and choose Remove Field. Last but not least, you can customize the pivot table field area. You can move it and place it next to your table if this facilitates your work. Click here. Excel will offer options to choose from. Pick the one you like. The pivot table fields area will be customized accordingly. I hope you found what you were looking for in this tutorial. If yes, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel for more videos. Check out other Excel video tutorials by Swag Academy in this playlist. Thanks for watching.